Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, read the roll.
Mayor Warfield.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Phillips.
Here.
Councilwoman McEachern. Here. Councilman Dickerson.
Here.
Councilman Haddis.
Here.
Councilwoman Dobrovolsky. Here. Councilman Connell.
Here. I'd like to take a minute, if the council would allow me to thank the citizens of Wayne and all the support I've received in the last week and the death of my father last week. We certainly, the Warfield family appreciates everything that's been done, and everybody is just very grateful for all the cards and the phone calls and the thanks, the sympathy that's been expressed. Thank you very much, citizens of Wayne.
First item on your agenda is approval of city council minutes for the special meeting of September 3rd at 7:30. Move approval. Support.
Move approval and support. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
And for the regular meeting of September 3rd at 8 o'clock.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Item 2 is request to approve a resolution honoring Enrique Henry Perez on his 100th birthday.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Request from the Michigan Humane Society to permit children to raise funds for animals on Halloween. Move approval.
Support.
Moved approval and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Request to install a stop sign at the intersection of Taft and Hayes Streets.
So moved for approval. Support.
Moved for approval and supported. Discussion?
Approving sending this for a traffic review before we adopt it. That's what you're approving. It should really be studied by our public safety.
I think this can.
We would ask that you send it to the Public Safety Department. We'll make a report to you at your next meeting.
Is that the motion?
Did the staff have the past experience with the, because it was mentioned to me, was requested before, if the chief feel we could put that sign, I don't think we need to study. I think we need to take action on it.
We have not had an opportunity to review the file. It has been looked at before, as you indicate. We'd like to have an opportunity to do that. I'm not certain, since the last time it was studied, if there's any new information that should be considered by the Public Safety Department. We'll be back to you October 1st.
Okay.
I don't think people are opposed to it. I think, though, that it's important that when it comes to the council, it has a traffic control order number with it so that it can be enforced, and that would take a couple weeks to get that enforced. I don't.
Okay.
So ordered.
Police Department request for approval of Wayne Memorial High School homecoming parade route and closure of Wayne Road from Ash Street to Glenwood on October 12th from 11 a.m. till noon. Move approval. Support.
Moved approval and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Item 3 is site plan review. The first is for Easy Recovery Auto Storage Lot at 3927 4th Street.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, apologize I didn't provide the plans for you at your places. As you probably recognize, this is my first time presenting the plans tonight. The first applicant for site plan review is Easy Recovery Auto Storage. The owner of the property, Jim Lamb, is here to represent the project tonight. And Mr. Lamb has proposed to make improvements to the property for an existing tenant. And he will pave and fence in property to make a parking lot. The staff has asked for additional engineering details in the 16 contingencies, and other items are of maintenance to the facility itself. We have met with the applicant, and he has agreed to the contingency, and the Planning Commission recommended to the council that you approve this site plan.
Mr. Lamb, your opportunity to discuss any of the contingencies with the council.
Your Honor, I really don't have anything to say. I've already talked to the Planning Commission and have agreed that the contingencies that they've requested are things that need to be done to the building. They've given me sufficient time, I think, to remedy some of the things. It's a very old building, and it will take a little time to get everything in order, but I think we're all in agreement.
Very good.
Move approval.
Moved.
Support.
Supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, sir. Good luck.
Second site plan is for 7-Star Liquor Center expansion at 4308 South Wayne Road.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the second site plan we have to present to you tonight is for 7-Star Liquor Center expansion. It is on South Wayne Road at the corner of Clinton, and Mr. Eddie Hamana, the owner of the 7-Star Liquor, is here to represent the site plan tonight. Mr. Hamana has proposed to make an expansion of 6,000 square feet of a mixed-use space connected to the current building, expanding to the south on the property. The Planning Commission recommended approval to the City Council with 12 contingencies. Two of the major ones were to remove the proposed driveway on South Wayne Road. He had proposed a second approach, and to reorient some of the parking for a better flow of traffic and layout. The staff has met with Mr. Hamana and his architect, who is also present tonight, and has agreed to the 12 contingencies listed. The building design will continue the current design at the 7-Star Liquor.
Hamana, your opportunity to discuss any of the contingencies with the council.
Well, we'll do everything. We'll comply with the city and the building department. So I don't have a problem with anything.
Good. Move approval.
Support.
Been moved, supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Good luck on your project.
Item 4 is bid awards. Consideration of bid award for the planting of 65 city trees to be paid from the major and local street funds. Move approval of low bid Harold Thomas Livonia, $10,800. Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Consideration of bid award for the purchase of a car for the Department of Public Works to be paid from the DPW Equipment Replacement Fund.
So moved, low bid. John Rogan, $16,500.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Consideration of bid award for the purchase of a car for City Hall to be paid from the Equipment Replacement Fund.
So move for approval for the low bid of John Rogan, Buick Wayne, $16,500.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Consideration of bid award for the purchase of a minivan for the Parks and Recreation Department to be paid from the Equipment Replacement Fund.
Move approval of the low bid Jack Demmer Ford, $19,133.90.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
consideration of bid award for the purchase of a full-size van for the meter shop to be paid from the Water and Sewer Fund.
Move approval, Jack Demmer Ford, $18,469.40.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Yes.
Yes, what's done with these old vehicles once they get new ones?
What's the plan on the old vehicle?
In some cases, the vehicles that are being replaced are being moved to another department, and in other cases, the vehicles will be sold. So it depends on which one.
If they're sold, they'll be advertised for sale.
Thank you.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Item 5, ordinances and amendments. Second reading and adoption of an amendment to the city's planning and zoning code to rezone 2 parcels from T1 to Industrial 2.
So moved said adoption.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
First reading regarding the codification of the ordinances previously adopted by council from April 1995 to June 1996.
Move approval.
Support.
Moved approval and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Comments from persons in the audience on matters not covered by the council agenda. Any comments from anybody in the audience? Yes, in the back row. Sure. Shirley?
I went to the public, or the planning commission meeting last Tuesday, and it was advertised in the paper to have a public hearing to amend chapter 1238 of the zoning ordinance regarding outdoor storage in R1AA district. They never had the public hearing. And I asked the city attorney the next morning, and he said that's illegal, they can't do that.
My understanding, Ms. Pauser, is that that matter was adjourned. I remember when we had the discussion, I said, are you sure they did not adjourn it so that it would be held later? I checked after I conversed with you with the department head who was present at that meeting, and she indicated to me that, yes, they had adjourned it, and we're going to hold it later on. The Planning Commission, as the City Council, can delay a public hearing or adjourn them to other dates. The important thing is that we give the citizenry notice of the date, and that was done.
Debbie did say that she's going to send a letter to all the residents in R1AA.
Debbie, who wants to make sure that all the people are aware of it, is going to publish it in the newspaper again and send them a letter to make sure that everybody's aware that there's proposed change going on. That's the notice requirements. In the particular case that you're talking about, Debbie is actually exceeding the necessity of our charter and our ordinances with regard to the notification, but she apparently feels that it's important enough that she wants to go the extra step or two and let everybody know what's going on, so that they have comments, they can come and make those comments.
Is she going to send them to the people in R1A?
Just the area that would be affected by the proposed change. As you'll recall when we were talking, the R1AA is basically a limited neighborhood. I think it involves Whitney Knoll, Newburgh Heights, Tanglewood, and Legacy Estates. Those 4 subdivisions are the only ones affected, and my understanding is those people will be notified so that they will have the opportunity to come and speak if they want.
Here's your planning and zoning code. This is R1A, one family residential.
R1AA, Mrs. Pauser.
No, I'm reading chapter 1240, R1A, one family residential. It says permitted principal uses, the same that are permitted in R1AA. So if it's not permitted.
But they're not changing the zoning in any area except R1AA. You don't need to notify someone in R1A if we're not changing anything in that zone. We're only changing R1AA, so we need to notify those people.
But it says in R1A that the stuff that's permitted in R1A is what is permitted in R1AA.
But Mrs. Pauser,
but the issue, we're only changing or talking about changing an R1AA area. That's the only area of the city that's being discussed in this particular issue.
What are you going to change, that it's not going to be allowed any outdoor storage?
Well, I don't know what they're going to change. That will be for the citizens to comment, the planning commission to make a suggestion, and for it ultimately to come to the council. I mean, I don't necessarily make the laws. I draft them after I get direction from the boards and commissions of the city and the city council. So I don't know that anything's going to be done until the steps are gone through for everyone in the community to be heard, and then there can be some decision made as to what it is that this council will do based on the recommendations they've received.
Well, I know 3 people that showed up to that meeting, and then they never held it. They just said, you know, they're just...
I understand that was true. It was not held. It was adjourned, and they were going to hold it at another date, which I believe is going to be in October.
And they can do that?
Yes.
Advertise and then not hold a meeting?
So long as they have a public hearing and notify the citizenry who want to make comments that they can come and make those comments. There may have been a reason that they did not hold the meeting. My understanding was that, in talking to the department head, that a sufficient amount of information was not available to disseminate to the planning commission so that they could make an informed decision. And so the administration said we would like a little more time to gather more information so that we can give you this information so that when you make a decision and a recommendation, you'll have more information available to you. Certainly, we would never prohibit anybody from making a comment. It will be advertised again, notices will be sent out again, so that anybody in the community who wants to speak, even if they don't live in R1AA, are welcome to come. But since it impacts those people most significantly, they're the ones that we're trying to key our notices to.
Can you do that? Just, say you're going to restrict outside storage. Can you just do that to one part of the city?
Yes. That's the difference of zoning. Obviously, we can treat industrial zoning different than commercial zoning, different than residential zoning. That's, I guess, kind of the definition of what zoning is. You treat different areas or different zones in different manners depending on the needs of those areas.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, Mr. Nick.
Could someone help me by understanding, do we have representatives on the body that Mayor Thomas sit on, whereby it's being discussed the division of Wayne County? And if so, who are those 2 representatives or 1 representative? And what is being discussed or proposed? I haven't heard anything about it in this chamber.
No, there's discussion going on at the Conference of Western Wayne, then I serve on there, and John's the alternate.
Mr. Zach?
And at this time, there's just discussion. There was real concern generated with the results of the park election. The majority, by far, in the suburbs.
Election, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, the past, just recent. Majority of the suburban communities turned that Parks millage down. Trenton was one that did approve it, and a couple other ones, and Detroit. But there was enough votes that it would narrowly pass for the county. So there was some real concerns about future issues, this issue and some future issues, increasing taxes in local communities in western Wayne County and downriver. And they're in discussion now about that concern. There's no action's been taken. It's going to be discussed at the next Conference of Western Wayne meeting. And this council, in the meantime, is going to be appraised of all the information that we have in hand. And they're going to be able to look that over and give me some sense of their feelings on that issue. It'll be on the ballot in November, but the meeting is in October. This, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Yeah. The separation won't be, but there's some other issues like the stadium issue that's going to be on the ballot, and that's another issue that we're going to be discussing. That's going to be on the ballot in November, and we're going to have a sense of what our representatives from the city of Wayne feel on that issue.
Mr. Mayor, I've heard structural things. I've heard a name, Newburgh County, which is interesting.
Those are all
It's all
speculations.
times, guys.
Who adopted that? I beg your pardon.
A candidate for county commission, I believe, did. Were you running for the county commission?
A defeated candidate, by the way.
Speculation.
And then I've heard where they've outlaid various cities that would go with Detroit, and somehow I don't understand, from what I read, they propose that we go with the Newburgh County. Livonia go, I don't know what they would do for Ed McNamara, who's the county exec. and Mike Duggan and the sheriff. And then it goes to Inkster, that strangely it goes with Detroit, and it skips over Dearborn Heights and Dearborn. I don't know how that's possible in light of the recent Supreme Court rulings about gerrymandering congressional districts for certain purposes. I just would appreciate if you keep us abreast of this. It seems to be unfortunately picking up steam. And I understand from Mayor Thomas, when I saw it on television, that he's going to look at the pros and cons of the taxation factor. But I just like to say in closing, if his argument is Detroit voted for the, and I'm not an advocate of Detroit, I don't live in Detroit obviously, but if Detroit always swing the vote in the county, I just like to say that if that's true, then Ed McNamara couldn't have won. The sheriff certainly couldn't have won. They don't live in Detroit. And a host of other elected officials couldn't have won. So I don't know where he's coming from in elections.
A couple of things, Jim. I think you give one man's idea and a couple people's idea.
Channel 7 did, I'm sorry.
Well, if you give it the notion that it is a proposed idea, you're giving it more credence than it actually has at this point. It's some discussions that when you look at the tax base of Wayne County, for example, the city of Livonia and the city of Dearborn have a larger tax base, either one of them, than the city of Detroit. When you look at, and I think that's one of the concerns, that suburban taxes are being used to fund things that don't necessarily benefit the suburban area as much as other areas in the county. But this is strictly, there is no any kind, there is not a formal proposal of any kind at this point. It's a couple people that have an idea that are looking at simply studying it. I mean, this is so far off. Take 100 lawyers 100 years to try to figure out how you disentangle communities.
So it's hard to have fun with this one.
Yeah, there's a real major problem with the debt, the county's debt, and you know, and this is not something new. It's not a new idea. It's a few years back, the same thing was generated, and there was a lot of discussion at that time. But a lot of it was just for headlines, I believe, and some political gain.
Seems like we're creating a total new bureaucracy. And
That's what
don't need
the
that.
general consensus is. But it gives, you know, it's out here and gives some concern downtown that, well, we better take a look at these people who are upset, because you know, we need to discuss this with them. So that's, I think, what Mayor Thomas is after. But I'm sure we'll be involved in any negotiations or discussions along the line.
Sure you will. Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, sir.
A couple of questions. The item on 5A, what would be the common name for those parcels listed?
Oh, you want to show them 5A?
Mr. Hepburn, there are parcels of land on the east side of Hicks Road that run basically the entire length of Hicks Road, and about 200 feet by this area here.
They don't really have an address.
Okay.
Property owned by Ford Motor and used as part of their shipping area for the F-Series truck and the Expedition.
One other question regarding, are there any building regulations regarding the exterior of new commercial construction in the city of Warren?
Are you talking about building code matters, or are you talking about like architectural review, or?
Basically brick versus concrete block construction.
No. Whatever is proposed by the owner of the building or the owner of the land that wishes to build a building on it, that material has to meet the building code. And we don't dictate whether it's brick or dry bit or plaster or wood. It can be any of those things as long as it's built to code, and that's reviewed by the building department.
And the fire.
And fire. The site is reviewed by several departments, including the council, which you saw tonight, 2 site plans. But the actual building plans of the 2 programs you saw here, those will be reviewed, as the mayor indicated, by the building department in cooperation with the fire department, and they will advise the contractor that these plans meet the code or not, and then what they have to do in order to have approved plans. Then the building is either renovated or built, remodeled or what have you, and then the respective inspections are made to see that in fact the construction followed the code and the plans.
Only where that would be different would be if the city owned the property and we were selling it and we wanted to have some input on the type of construction. On those occasions, we've had some input on what kind of buildings went up.
Okay.
Any other comments? Okay, we'll move to Jen. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Mayor, I had a question that was posed to me this morning that I thought would be of interest to those people living within the Forest Park area. The question was from Mr. Feemster and asking about Phase 2 of Forest Park. Kim?
The pavilions that have been allotted for in this year's budget for Walt Quadruplex and Forest Park are on order. We expect to receive those pavilions the end of September, and shortly after that they'll be installed. Also, horseshoe pits and picnic tables will follow the installation of the pavilions. That might wait until early next spring. Along with upgrading Forest Park, we've been working with Baseball Association, and they will be upgrading the ball fields again this fall with our help.
Very good. Okay, move to Jen.
Item 6, communications and reports. Thank you letter from the Wayne Westland Federal Credit Union for the city's fire education program.
Receive note file.
Letter from Judge Archbold and memo from the city attorney regarding House substitute for Senate Bill 1052.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, maybe you'd like to have the city attorney talk about that a little bit, because I believe both the judge and the attorney and the administration would like you to pass a resolution in support of House substitute bill, and so we can forward that to Representative Kelly and others.
I'm not sure of the status, Mr. Mayor and council members, of the draft bill. However, the bill that was introduced and they were working on basically said this: the district court or any municipal court having jurisdiction over municipal civil infractions, that would be our district court. As this council may recall, last year you passed several municipal civil infractions, the most important of which, as it relates to these matters, address the issue of smoking by minors. It has been a problem with regards to who had jurisdiction over the tobacco issues relative to minors, whether it was the juvenile court or the district court. There has been much discussion and much confusion as to which court has the jurisdiction. Judge Archbold and myself are very much in favor of having the district court be the court that will control this particular issue. And my memo goes on to state basically that I'd like to see the district courts have an enhanced, if you will, authority relative to all juvenile matters. It's just my personal opinion, not necessarily the opinion of this council or anyone else. The juvenile matters can best be dealt with locally, and I'd like to see our district courts get more authority. And I'm just asking the council to adopt a resolution kind of expanding on what the judge had asked for to include a little bit more.
This dovetails into the discussions you've had on numerous occasions relative to parental responsibility and the issue of our juvenile cases getting downtown and being sort of swept up and lost in the pile of juvenile cases from all over the county. Follows along the discussions we've had too about court reorganization, and so if at this time you'd like to pass that resolution, or we can bring this back when you've had a little more time to think about it, whatever your pleasure is.
I'll move the resolution that we support the draft 5 with the section 8703 language.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion?
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Does that motion include what Mr. Clark explained about increasing more powers to the courts?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Memo from the fire chief and thank you letter from a citizen regarding Captains Greshover and Waldrop, Lieutenants Cuffatelli and Reeves, firefighters Berger, Nepshield, Chapman, McKee, Gilstorf, and Wiley, and probationary firefighter Cahill.
Would you read the letter, please?
Letter is addressed to Captain Greshover. On behalf of my family and myself, we wanted to send you our sincere thanks and appreciation for saving our home on 3rd Street on August 17th. All of the people from the fire department were very kind and thoughtful. They answered our questions, helped us move and cover furniture, and helped locate the cause of the fire. We are proud and happy to live in a city where people really care about each other. We will rebuild. Thank you again. Sincerely yours, Donna Sherlin.
Very good. Chief, recognized, I'm sure, pass on the council's recognition. Thank you for the job well done.
Yes, sir, I will.
Receive note to file.
Letter from Keep Michigan Beautiful concerning the 1996 Distinguished Service Award for the Wayne Public Library.
This is recognition of the library, and Keep Michigan Beautiful is a well-recognized organization. So apparently we're going to be receiving an award for the Wayne Public Library. And I'm sure there'll be a representative or two from the city to receive that later in October. Receive note to file.
Memo from the DPW Director regarding a citizen question at the September 3rd City Council meeting.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, at the last meeting, Mr. Netter asked a question about the adequacy of the street lighting in Van Born Road in the area of Vinoy to Merriman Roads. Particularly, I believe he was interested in the intersection of Hickory Hollow Drive and Van Born Road. Mr. Clark reviewed the matter, discussed it with Detroit Edison. As you can see from his report, we have 24 street lights in that span. They are 400-watt mercury vapor lights. It's one of the, from the perspective of street lighting, it's one of the better lit areas. There may be some lighting needed in Hickory Hollow. However, those streets are private streets, and they're not under the jurisdiction of the city. The street lighting is particularly to light up the street and the berm area, the sidewalk area. So from the perspective that he raised, there might be a need in Hickory Hollow from some additional lighting, and we would arrange with Detroit Edison to work with them relative to that. But from the street perspective and the right-of-way perspective, we have lights on our side. Romulus does not. So there's not much more we can do. But I'd be glad to get with Mr. Netter and the others involved at Hickory Hollow and help them possibly with some of their questions. Maybe there's some lighting things that they could do as a co-op that would answer some of his concerns. Mr. Netter?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to shed this light on that, speaking of lights. When we put the berm, we had to do it through the permission and under the auspices of the county. We had to post a $3,000 bond, I guess, that we haven't had returned to us to this day. I guess they've had our money for at least 3 to 4 years. Part of the problem is they determined how that berm would sit. They determined every sign and post where we put up a 50-foot light. If you go there, we had hoped that, and with 2 bulbs, we had hoped that it would throw out such a radius that it would light up that intersection. We cannot go any further without the county's permission. They will not allow you to put a light there. The problem is the intersection when it was cut, when that place was developed, somebody was not thinking either that Hickory Hollow was there before the street lights or something, but I think, what's the distance from one light to another?
Mr. Clark?
150 feet.
So that means we probably sit right at 75 feet. And therefore, we don't get enough light from the east to do us any good. We don't get enough light from the west. The problem is you have a light there, traffic light. You have 267 families, which multiply by 3, at least 267 adult drivers entering that one section. One section is restricted, the east section is restricted in working with the Neighborhood Watch and the Wayne Police Department in our efforts to restrict traffic and to restrict the drug trade at one time that was coming out of the eastern part of Wayne County and coming in and out of there and bringing its violence with it. Strangely enough, I had reservations about that suggestion after 2 neighborhood watch meetings, but it seemingly worked. We have our maintenance man to close that gate off at 7 o'clock each night. So what I'm saying to you is there's only one exit after a certain time at 7 p.m. The problem is when we do have an incident that happened in there, we have a neighborhood watch program. In fact, I just talked to the new officer, I can't think of his name, but it's a young gentleman that stopped by yesterday to talk to the manager, and we told him we were going to have a, when they asked us what is the description of the car or anything like that, when it stops at Van Born after doing something in that subdivision, we can't help them because there's not enough light anywhere. So if they make it to that intersection, they're really under the cover of darkness. And that's our only opportunity for them to stop at that traffic, which is 50 miles an hour, to identify them for the police. And there just isn't enough light given, and the county will not permit us. We've already done what Mr. Zach is suggesting to you to the tune of thousands of dollars, and we cannot add any more light without the county's permission, and they're not going to give us any more permission to put a private light at our control at that intersection. It's something, normally intersections that are stopped and what have you are lit up a little bit more for all kinds of reasons. You have accidents, the police and fire department, if they're treating that accident, need the benefit of the light. It's not just a Hickory Hollow issue, it's a life and death issue on Van Born Road. And we do have a number of accidents at that intersection, unfortunately, for all kinds of reasons. And maybe we can move the lights closer, I don't know. Instead of 150 feet, maybe we can bring them in where they're really serving somebody. But Mr. Zach, I don't think the county's going to let us go any further with that.
My point is that there's 24 lights, they're 150 feet apart. That's the Edison standard. That's what we use throughout the city. The kind of light fixtures that's there is the best kind of light fixture you can have, mercury vapor. And from the Edison perspective, we have parts of the city that are not as well lit as that. And if there's an issue there of crime and an issue there of people not stopping at the red light or not observing it, etc., we will work with you relative to that from a police perspective. But from the standpoint of lighting, it is as well lit as it can be. And to add any more lights in that area would be inappropriate. And I would not recommend the spending of city funds to the council to do that. The council, of course, has the prerogative to do it if they wish, but there's other parts of the city, particularly on Van Born Road and other places where lighting is needed, where it is insufficient. This is not one of the insufficient areas.
To the chair, Mr. Mayor, I had this discussion in the council chamber years ago when we discussed putting up a traffic light. When Hickory Hollow was built, it had no traffic light at all. The citizens there were left to get out on Van Born Road the best they knew how in 50-mile-an-hour traffic. The fact of the matter is they didn't kill for a year. The last killing that we had there in the traffic was a woman and an 11-year-old child. So, if you go back and read the statistics, we've had a numerous amount of deaths, depending on where they die at. If it's Romulus, then the statistics aren't picked up in Wayne. When that argument came forth, the same argument came about the money issue and the expenditures of funds. At that time, I was the board president, and I just simply said, hoping that my board would back me up, we'll pay for the light. We did. And I have the documentation on that. We paid $7,500 for that traffic light that's hanging out there on Van Born that serves everybody. And we paid for that. That's ours. And that's the difference. Now, I can't think of another subdivision in Wayne where people have put out $7,000 to $10,000 for a light. We pay the energy bill each and every month for that traffic light on Van Born Road. So, expending funds, we have a history of expending funds, and that's the difference in this particular case. I would agree that there's probably needs throughout the city, but I would also agree that we have put our money where our mouth's at, and long before now, I think somewhere around when Roy Smith was county commissioner, and Freddie Burton, Senior, was on the road commission, God knows way back then, that we got that. It took 2 years to get that light, and we finally did get it, and it's on there on the condition that we pay the energy bill, and we pay the maintenance of it, and we paid it, and I have the receipts to prove that. The city of Wayne didn't pay a dime. So that's the difference in that intersection. And I would just beg you to take that in consideration when you speak of that intersection in relationship to other intersections in the city. And the need is there.
Thank you, Jim.
So where do we go from here? I just need some direction. Because
I'd like to ask the city manager if the city been involved with any discussion with Wayne County about the light Jim mentioned.
I don't understand the question, Mr. Hayes.
Jim mentioned Wayne County would never respond to their need because the other side of the street, it's Romulus, and Van Born, it's Wayne County Road. So Jim mentioned Wayne County been very negative on responding to the need. Did the city been involved in any discussion with the county?
Not relative to putting street lights in Romulus, no.
No, in Wayne.
We have not been involved with putting lights on the other side of the road. We have them on our side of Van Born Road to the standard that's used in the city. Mm-hmm. We have lights along our side of the road to that standard. We could increase the number of lights in the area if that is what the council wishes. You could bring them to 50 feet apart, 100 feet apart. But what I'm indicating to you is there are 24 lights in that area from Vinoy to Merriman on the north side of Van Born Road. I would invite the council to travel that section of the road and travel other sections of Merriman and other parts of Van Born Road, Newburgh Road, etc. It is one, in my opinion, and the opinion of the Public Works Director, one of the better lit areas of the city. I'm not familiar with the history of how the traffic light came to be at Hickory Hollow Drive and Van Born Road. And I take him at his word that Hickory Hollow Co-op paid for the traffic light. The county has a standard that they follow relative to whether or not they will put a light on a county road and pay for it. We have been, as you know, there have been other residents in this room over the years that have asked for a traffic light to be installed at Vinoy and Forest. And when the county does their traffic study, they come back and say there isn't enough traffic on Forest to warrant a light at Vinoy and Forest. When people have come in this room and asked the city to study whether or not a light is needed at an intersection, such as at the corner of 2nd and Glenwood, the city has conducted a study, and here's one that involves the city of Westland. It's on the border, and we came back with the recommendation that a light be established there because of the traffic on 2nd and on Glenwood, and the city of Wayne paid for the light. As it turned out, Westland didn't want to pay their half, and so we paid for the whole thing because we felt the public safety need to have that light. So I'm not objecting to his comments about security and safety, and as a member of the Hickory Hollow Board and a longtime resident of the co-op, I can understand where he is coming from relative to wanting to do what's the best he can for Hickory Hollow Co-op. But if you ride Van Born Road, you will see that that's the only section of the road where there is a lot of streetlights. We are lacking in streetlights west of Vinoy, coming toward Wayne Road. And if we have scarce resources or modest resources to purchase streetlights with, I would recommend to you that we install streetlights on Van Born between Vinoy and Wayne Road, or between Vinoy and Howe and Wayne Road, and west of Wayne Road. And but I would never recommend to you, unless there was some very urgent need, that the city of Wayne pay for a light in another community, such as put streetlights up in Romulus, so that they would be interspersed with ours on our side of the road. It would have to be something quite unusual. And we have many subdivisions in the city that come out onto major roads in which there is not a light. At the corner of Annapolis and Merriman, there is not a light. And you have several subdivisions that converge there. Suwin, Gloria Acres, come out onto Merriman Road, equal in speed, equal in the number of vehicles. Merriman Road is a county road. If we want a light at Annapolis and Merriman, we will have to persuade the county that there's the traffic there to warrant it. And if we can't, they won't put it up. It's not an easy issue, but I don't believe that it's in the best interest of the city to invest more streetlight dollars in Van Born in that section. I would recommend to you that you place them elsewhere when they become available. But I will investigate whatever you ask me to investigate.
In closing, can I just stipulate three things? At some point, we're talking about oranges and apples. At no time am I talking or suggesting that the city of Wayne tell Romulus to put lights on its side, though I would love it, and that would certainly be a big help. What I am asking the city to do on behalf of my cooperative is to help us, if it's a county matter, get permission. We have no objection about installing private lights to our benefit. We've done it all along. But it's our understanding, my understanding, that the county won't permit us to go any further out than we already have. If that can be waived somehow in a safe manner, we will do it. Secondly, as a treasurer of the cooperative board, I don't think my board would be object to, I believe there's an instrument in the city government where people can have special assessments for certain things. If we need to pick up the tab for the light, then we would certainly look at that. That's number two. Number three, given the census tract of that whole subdivision, I'm sure it's clear that community development block grant funds can be used for that purpose. And let me tell you why. There's always a precedent set in this city. In 1973, in the subdivision called at that time Castlemaine Commons, which is now called commonly Glenwood Heights, community development block grant funds for low and moderate income people was used to put streetlights in Glenwood Heights. So my argument is, and I have the minutes of that, if somebody saw fit in this council 23 years ago to put streetlights in Glenwood Heights where $100,000 homes and low and moderate income money, then I'm only asking for one light where there are low and moderate income people. And the discussion that Mr. Zach gave you, and I take recognition that he didn't get here to 1979 or January, that he didn't make the argument at that time. I don't even think we had anybody to deal with the issue of community development block grants until Mr. Zach got here. But somebody saw fit to use those funds to help a developer put in streetlights in Glenwood Heights. So and if I go down Crestwood or Hillcrest Drive, I believe, and Meadowlawn, I believe and if you go down Hillcrest, you'll see that the lighting But look at the poles the next time you go in here. If the poles are different than the lights in the rest of the subdivision. And so therefore, it's my argument that if this city can put 40 lights in a $100,000 home subdivision, it doesn't seem fair that you're going to say we don't want to bear the expense of one light in front of a guaranteed subsidized HUD-run subdivision called Hickory Hollow or Westwood Square. We've never got one community development block grant dollar in this city. Not $1. Not directly. Whereas Glenwood Heights or Castlemaine Commons, after they gave them the street lights, they changed the name of the subdivision for some reason, but it's still the same houses. And if you go back and look at your minutes of Community Development Block Grant Funds, Citizen Advisory Council minutes, I believe in 1974, 1975, you will see street lighting for Glenwood Heights. 40 of them. So you would have to make the argument, Mr. Zach, that before you came, the city saw fit to spend money for street lights in a high-priced subdivision, and now want to say we're going to deny street lights in a low-income subdivision, which was designed for low-income community development block grant funds. I don't know how they got away with it, but they did. So the precedent has already been set by the city that you have invested. You've invested more street lights in Glenwood Heights than anywhere else in the city of Wayne, and you did it with community development block grant funds. So you have three issues here. I'm asking that the city possibly, through its influence, help us, through the county, to move the red tape out of the way, to make lighting. We will even bear the expense. I will propose that to my board and its membership, because I think they'll adopt it because they have nowhere else to go. Secondly, we can certainly entertain special assessment. That's been done, I believe, not only in this city, but in other areas, for pavement and everything else. Thirdly, community development block grant funds. Those are the three options that I'm putting before you in relationship to this matter. But I just wanted to give you some historical perspective about spending money. And the next time you go down Hillcrest Drive, there's low-income money. And I ask yourself, are those low-income houses? And how did it happen? And I'm only asking for one lane, not 4. And Donna, you seem to doubt me, or you're blinking. I'll bring you the minutes if you have doubt.
Not at all, Jim.
Thank you. I'll be happy to produce the minutes.
I'd like to see them, yes. Most interested.
So that's what I'm asking for, Mr. Mayor. Those three items.
The administration will review
For the city
those.
to help us with the county.
We'll take a look at it.
To help Hickory Hollow legally construct something. We don't want to construct something, the county come along and tell us to tear it down.
Right.
And waste our money. Secondly, that if the city has to do it rather than Hickory Hollow, please let me know what that cost is so I can fit it in the budget and get my board to approve it. Working with anybody that you deem necessary in the city. Thirdly, if it's such a great expense, we can look at community development block grant funds just for one light at that subdivision, at that intersection, the main intersection. That's it.
And we'll take a look at it.
Thank you, sir.
Item 7, general items for consideration. Traffic control order 419 to establish a stop sign at the northwest corner of Mildred and Stillwagon.
Move approval.
Word.
Moved approval and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Traffic control order 420 for a stop sign at the northwest corner of Winifred at Stillwagon.
Moved approval and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Traffic control order 421 for a stop sign at the northwest corner of Niagara at Stillwagon.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Traffic Control Order 422 for 14 handicap parking signs in the parking structure.
Move approval. Support.
Moved to approval and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Request to approve the payment on an emergency basis for stormwater drainage repairs at Taft Park to Don Young Landscape in the amount of $2,150 to be paid from the Parks and Recreation Capital Replacement Fund.
So move.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Recommendation to declare 34650 Brook Street a hazard and nuisance and to assess the charges to the owner of record.
Administration has requested that we defer this to the next meeting. Without objection, so ordered.
Request to call a special meeting for Wednesday, November 6th at 8 p.m. due to the general election to be held November 5th.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Call a public hearing for October 1st at 8 p.m. to consider the adoption of an ordinance relating to the establishment of commercial antenna towers.
Move to call the meeting. Public hearing.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Professional services agreement with Beckett and Rader regarding Phase 2 of the Taft Playground Development Project in the amount of $5,000 to be paid from the Parks and Recreation Capital Outlay Fund.
So move.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Can you tell us what's going to happen there with this park? It seems to have had a lot of renovations.
Kim, you want to fill them in on the
Last
Taft
year,
playground?
we were fortunate to install a brand new climber in that area. Taft Park for years did not have any playground equipment. With the community development staff, we were able to secure a recreation bond fund grant in the amount of $37,500. This will enable us to improve even in large part the playground equipment that is there. We are looking at a small picnic shelter, extended landscaping, benches, picnic tables, a 3-foot rock fence, and that's why we're proposing the services to affect the
Thank you.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Call a public hearing for October 1st at 8 p.m. to consider an industrial development district for Unistrut Corporation through Act 198 of the Public Acts of Michigan, 1974.
Move approval.
Moved approval and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Professional services agreement with Coquillard, Dundon, Peterson, and Argenta for design services associated with the City of Wayne Fire Station renovation and expansion project in the amount of $176,000 to be paid from the DDA fund.
City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, based on the decision made by the council, I believe it was August 7th, choosing the alternative that we expand and renovate the present fire hall. The staff has met with the architect and engineers that did the feasibility study, which is Coquillard, Dundon, Peterson, and Argenta. And with that direction that we were given, we asked them to prepare a proposal for your consideration for doing the next step, and that is the plans, specifications, bid documents, etc., that would carry out the expansion and renovation of the present fire hall. That's what's before you. They've asked for a contract with the city in the amount of $176,000 in light of the projected costs of the project of $2.2 million or so. That's a fair number, and so that's before you tonight for your consideration.
So moved staff's recommendation.
Support.
Moved and supported, discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Head?
I think it's irresponsible to make a decision tonight to spend $176,000 of the taxpayers' money when the council know we have a petition on the street to take this issue before the voter in the city of Wayne. I want to know if we collect the 2,500 signatures, 1,000 signatures, who's going to recover those money spent now for the taxpayer? The city received the petition, the election committee approved it, and we have petition on the street. And thousands of signatures will be presented in a few weeks to the city council. I want to hold them responsible for $176,000 of the taxpayers' money. I will not support the motion.
Yes, sir.
To the council, at this time, as being a new resident of the city and also a voter, my feelings are this. It is irresponsible of this county council to spend this kind of money when they do know that there is a petition drive at this time. I think it is not very wise or smart. Okay? I am in favor of a new fire station. So is my wife. We never understood why this wasn't originally put to a vote to the people. Okay? I think you should wait and table this decision until after everything has been finalized by the people. If they don't get the signatures, then okay, go ahead and proceed. If they do, keep it tabled until it is decided by the voters of the city. Remember, we are voters. We voted you in, and if we don't like your decisions, we can vote you out. And so far, I do have a couple people that I've noticed on this council by watching the television circuit, which is very helpful, that I plan to campaign very strongly against having them reelected, because I think they have not thought this whole decision out properly. Thank you.
Mr. Netter?
I'd just like to address the council on the structural point. I presented a letter prior to August the 20th, and at the August 20th meeting, that letter was item 6E on the agenda. Mr. Mayor, you were absent at that time, and Mayor Pro Tem Phillips chaired that meeting. And it was a lively discussion and got off rocky, but it was a fairly well-even discussion. He was for all parts, very fair to us. And we understood that he was on the other side of the issue, and somehow he restrained his inner emotions and was
I consider myself a fair person, no matter what the issue is, sir.
I was a little amazed how he was going to do it, and he did okay. But
Thank
in
you.
that discussion, the tape would show you that I addressed my letter 3 times. The last time I spoke to the letter, I indicated the charter. And the reason why I did that, because in your charter it says that citizens have 60 days to collect 10% or more. On the second page of continuing in that chapter, it says 25% stops an action or stops an ordinance. And I have that here for anyone on the council who may not have read the charter. I've read it 3 or 4 times since then, and that's what it says. The 60 days is unique. 60 days seems to suggest from a legal standpoint, and correct me, Mr. Clark, because when we gave notice that night, and I said, I'm giving you notice that it's our intent to circulate petitions. And at that time, we did not have a duly qualified legal ballot question committee recognized by the council. So we went there and did everything and got our committee recognized as a legal petition committee. We submitted a copy of our organization sheet signed by our treasurer, And I indicated who the probable officers are. I believe Chairperson Mr. Pressthorn is the chairman, and I indicated who the other co-people were, just to indicate that it was real. That was received by the city clerk, along with some language that was proposed that was reviewed September the 4th. That language was not accepted or was something flawed. New language was submitted September the 11th, and I believe at your table you have minutes from both meetings of the Election Commission. So you have more than ample notice if you look at September 4th, you'll see where some language was proposed, and then we came back to you September the 11th, because in the first language it designated a certain spot. First one, it said south of Michigan Avenue, then it designated a certain spot. Mr. Clark said, well, I'm not sure that we can designate somebody else's land. And I said, well, you know, I guess you're right. It does sound kind of cowboyish, and we better not do that. And so we came back. Mrs. Pauser submitted it over her signature, and that language was approved, if you look at your minutes. I guess all I'm saying is that it's real, pursuant to the remarks of Councilman Hayes, that we are, in fact, out here circulating signatures. Your charter permits us to have 60 days for our efforts. For you to entertain a financial consideration here tonight, when we have just got approval to even begin circulating as of the 11th, less time to make the petitions up, is not providing us the time that's permitted in the charter. The charter permits us 60 days. In fairness to your citizens, you must allow, I mean, we would hope that you would allow us 60 days. If we fail, then you have met, in our opinion, the obligation of the charter. You've given us our time, we came up short. And then it would come back before you with a number of certifiable signatures deemed by the clerk. Is that right? You certify how many signatures to the council?
That's correct.
We may collect, for instance, 3,000, but you may determine that we only have 2,900 that are valid. And that'll be your report. And at that time, then I think, according to the charter, you have two options. You can rescind your action, or you can submit it to the electorate for a vote for their determination. Am I citing anything wrong here, Mr. Clark?
You're pretty close.
Thank you, sir.
Not entirely accurate, but close.
Well, that scares me. But I want to be accurate, so help me out if I might through the chair. And that's our understanding. If we're wrong, please correct us tonight. But we remember the great question of the prevailing wage, which I think was a referendum of some sort put on for the first time. We remember something else, but never before have the citizens of Wayne been denied their 60-day window of opportunity to exercise their democratic right, and that is to petition his body and to give us that chance before you take an action. And that's what we would like to say to you, Mr. Mayor. We might have some comments, but that's my understanding. If I'm wrong, I'd like to be corrected tonight. Thank you very much.
Is there any major...
Oh, the clerk.
The only thing I'm concerned about is the comment that you have 60 days. But the charter talks about 60 days from when you initiate the petition drive to complete your signatures. It does not say that the council gives to you 60 days before they'll take action. The council's action was not an ordinance amendment, okay? It was the entering into of a contract, or potentially a contract, a decision to build at a certain site and then to enter contracts. So I just want to make sure you understand the 60 days that is alluded to is the number of days that you have relative to collecting signatures on your petitions. There's nothing that prohibits the council from taking action. That's their decision.
May I redirect?
Mrs. Smith?
Well, just one second. I mean, since he's pointed to me.
Oh, I think she's going to comment on that.
Oh,
she doesn't.
just one thing. Could you yield a minute, please?
No, go right ahead.
In law, Mr. City Attorney, there's the letter of the law, and there's the spirit of the law. We may very well be addressing you under the spirit of the law and the spirit of fairness, and that has never been something legislative. But, you know, it's always been this council throughout my memory, and my memory is probably as good as anybody in this room, where they've
Better
allowed-
than most, Jim.
Yeah, they've allowed citizens to be an opportunity to go and do whatever, and that's just all I'm saying. And
I suggest that plea be made to the council, not to me.
Yes.
Okay.
Mrs. Smith.
I hope they're listening.
From the last meeting, although I couldn't attend here due to a death, I did watch the proceedings on our cable. And near the end of that discussion on the fire station and the renovation of it, Mr. Nutter brought up the fact that a petition drive would be started. And he asked at that point that he stated at that point he was giving notice that this was going to be done. Therefore, would the council consider not taking any action in regard to it until we could get this done? And the Mayor Pro Tem at that point stated, of course, Mr. Nutter, and everybody laughed. Now, I took that as a promise from the council that nothing would be done. If I'm wrong, and I very well may be, may I please have a promise from those council members that feel spending this $176,000 is such a good idea that they personally will guarantee that money and leave our tax money alone. If they believe in it that much, let them personally decide that. And I do have some personal questions, too, in regard to the council from watching that tape. Several of you were asked why you voted the way you did. I'm sorry, Ms. McEachran. Whatever you stated made absolutely no sense and somehow didn't fit anything that was said that night. I'm glad you're proud of our fire department. We are, too. Okay? And no one...
something in regard to that?
When I'm done, please, I have the floor. Thank you. Pam, you made the statement that you voted no because your neighbors didn't want it. I thought you were here to represent all of Wayne, not just your neighborhood. I find that very upsetting, that what you made it sound like was all that was important to you were your neighbors. I'm not in your immediate neighborhood, but I'm in the neighborhood. You didn't speak for me. You didn't ask me. Everybody I've talked to haven't had you talk to them. Mr. Dickerson, you made the statement you wouldn't change your vote no matter what. That means that you're not there to represent me either. And I find that very offensive, and I find the sneer rather offensive that you just gave.
It was just a reaction to your question. Go ahead, because I have a
I'm sorry,
comment.
I'm stating my
Okay.
reaction to your
Okay.
reaction, all right? You are there to represent me, and you should listen to what I and everybody else has to say. We have a right. We may not be the intellects of this town, but we do have a great deal of common sense. And I'm sorry, in my opinion, I haven't seen any common sense used in this issue. And I've read all the material I could find. I even took the time to call some of the council people. And to be told it's a done deal is very upsetting, because it isn't a done deal. And I have never seen an issue in the 40-some years I've lived in this city that has caused more of an uproar. And more people have taken note of who voted no than I have ever seen on any issue. And the answers given at council were very unfitting to the people that are out there. And I know I've walked many blocks since that council meeting, and I will continue to.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Donna?
All right. First off, I was curious as to who the council people were that told you it's a done deal, and what was a done deal.
That council person knows, and they can talk to me if they want afterwards about it, or
So
make
it's
a
a council
statement.
person,
And
not council people?
person.
Okay.
I said person.
Oh,
Okay.
I heard people. Okay, fine. All right. In regard to what you had to say about my statement, perhaps it didn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm don't always express myself as well as I would like to. I apologize for that. What I was referring to was that the issue of whether the fire station being located on the south end really had a large impact on the ability of the fire department to react more quickly to all of the city of Wayne. I didn't find was that relevant an issue. I don't believe there's that much of a difference in between where it is located right now and where it would be located.
Have you ever had a fire in your home?
Yes, I have.
30 seconds can make a major difference.
Yes, and
Okay,
it could
a
also
central
be a problem.
location is going to help erase that 30 seconds from everybody's home. Anyone who's had a fire will know 30 seconds can make a major difference. A minute can mean a life or a death.
And I suppose if you look at it that way, then the letter that was before us tonight from Mrs. Sherlin, then the fire department would have been located probably more than 30 seconds away from her then. And they had considerable damage at their house, perhaps the entire home.
Yes, and there's one on Mildred that wouldn't have been lost, maybe.
Well,
if it
one
could have
doesn't
been a little
know.
quick.
You know, one doesn't
So
know. I mean, we can go
that's
back and forth all night.
Semantics.
Yeah.
Okay. That's semantics. But again, I would like to know the council who's willing to put out this $176,000 and not table it, if they're willing to personally guarantee that money and not put it on us taxpayers.
Gentlemen.
I think that's fair.
Just a minute. Pam, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I'd like to say I haven't only talked to people within my neighborhood, but I have talked to people all over Wayne, and they feel that my decision was right in renovating. I mean, it wasn't just a chosen few, and also to tear down that home that's been there since the 1800s. You're building a fire station right in front of 3 beautiful homes. And so you are upsetting, you know, you're living on the other side. You're not living in that neighborhood.
I'll buy your home.
You're willing to spend the taxpayers' dollars to buy those homes.
No, not necessarily, but if that person is willing to sell that property and or another piece of property, I'm not insistent that it be there, but I am wondering, from what I understood from that council meeting, the way the renovation would go on the old building, the renovation would go over the existing sewers, and in so doing, that's a code violation that the gentleman at Red Apple, and him and I talked last week about it. That cost him $25,000. And the proposed, or whatever was said was proposed, of going east on that, is taking it over a sewer. And how, as a city, are you going to do that? It was proposed at that meeting to explain to us or tell us what it was going to cost and where you were going to house the fire department. No one would answer that, although it was asked twice, I believe, in that meeting. And no provision was made in the cost of renovating for the housing of the fire department and their equipment. That wasn't included in the cost. We still haven't got an answer from council what you plan on doing with these guys. Put them up down at the Red Apple?
That was in the study, Mrs. Smith. In the study, it
But
covered
what
that
asked the
aspect.
council?
Okay, well, maybe it just got by us somehow, but if you had a copy of the study, which obviously what you're saying you probably have, you'll see that that issue was addressed, and the engineers felt that with minimal inconvenience, the staff could stay there while the renovation was taking place. Stay at the current site.
At the current site.
That's correct. If you want to look at the... Well, laugh if you will, Mrs. Smith.
Well, it is comical.
Well, if you read the study, it's not comical. So that's, I recommend to you, before you make those accusations to this body, you look at the study, get your facts straight, then come to us with those questions.
I have my
Or if you want to
facts
call the architect, his number's on the book, or you can get it. You could get that number from the city manager or the development department.
I would be happy to do that.
Okay.
But again, I would like to know those that would be in favor of spending this money, are they willing to personally
Absolutely not.
stand behind it?
Absolutely not.
So but you're willing to put it on us taxpayers? Thank
I'm willing
you.
to spend the money based upon the council vote from the past. I mean,
Thank you.
like I stated, let me finish now, don't be smart.
I am smart.
Well,
Please don't be derogatory.
well, you're interrupting me, I gave you your time.
Do not be derogatory to me. It is my money that is paying.
Let's get back to order.
Mr. Mayor.
You want to respond?
Yes, please. I have a question for the manager. What is the timeline for this architectural, the designs? We're talking 6 months or 4 to 6 months of work, correct?
Roughly 4 months to do plans and specs and be ready to bid. As we've discussed, the time to bid this project, whether we're building option 1, 2, or 3, is in the winter. So you can commence construction in the spring.
That's correct.
And so,
Mr. Mayor.
so that's what
Mr.
we're
Harris,
talking
I'm not
about is about a 4 to 6 month process of developing plans, specs, bid documents, go out to bids, review the bids, bring them back for the city council's consideration.
So that gives us plenty of time, if what Mr. Haddis said, 2 weeks. If 2,500 signatures are presented to the city clerk's office within this 2-week, 3-week period, well, I heard 2 weeks sitting up here, so let me finish. If those signatures are presented, that would give us ample time to speak with the architect, have him cease what he's doing, and continue on. My point is that, do we stop what we're doing based upon the threat of getting signatures? We don't know if 2,500 signatures are going to be collected. I've collected signatures before. It's harder than most people think to collect signatures. Cliff, you've collected signatures. Jim, you've collected signatures. It's not that easy what you think. Well, regardless of that, I think... Okay, that's fabulous, Jim, but if you present your 2,500 signatures, obviously that would make a decision to this body to either, obviously to stop what we're doing and cease with this contract, but as of right now, we have no signatures. The first time I seen your ballot language was on Friday when the council pack came. I seen the mumble-jumble language that came 2 weeks ago. That was in my mind when I made this decision, when we went all along, forcing us to buy some property we don't own. That was something that and the first time I seen your language was Friday. Do I think you'll get your signatures? I don't know. What I heard was totally opposite what you're hearing. When I was at the festival over that 4-day period, I received more positive comments about saving taxpayer money and utilizing that additional money downtown for projects that will benefit the entire city. Not just what you claim, south side, north side, new, old, renovate, whatever the issue was. And, at this time, I'm ready to move forward on the issue. The staff has recommended, if you read the memo from the staff, we feel it's time to move forward, and that's why I made the motion. I plan to stand by it.
May I respond, please? Just on something.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, then Mr. Haddon.
Yes, sir, thank you. We submitted language pursuant to an option that this body had entered into with the owners of that parcel. And I believe it expires somewhere down the line, long after this question will be satisfied one way or another in the petition, relationship of the petition. You have an option, there's valuable consideration, and bear in mind, I'm a realtor, so, I do understand that. And, and all I'm saying to you is that based upon the fact that you did have an option, what Mr. Clark pointed out to me, and I understood it, understanding real estate law, is that something may happen where we might get outside the option and very well find this city in a very difficult situation because we have legislatively or through the petition demand that something happen that the council has no power about. So in that respect, we didn't want to do that, and we left it blank. We left the option potential out of it, and we just simply said the building and fire station south of Michigan Avenue. But it wasn't mumble jumble. It was lay people, citizens, trying to at best present something that is acceptable to the city attorney that he could agree can be put on the ballot before his citizens. And in doing that, Lord have mercy, it can look like mumble jumble just going back, because we have to submit it.
But Jim, you know the charter, and I'll admit it right here, you know the charter better than I do. You've had more charter issues than probably all of us up here. And I knew that once the signatures were collected, that it has to go on to the next scheduled election. The next scheduled election is obviously the city council primary, which is in the next March. Where are you getting March from?
The next regularly scheduled election would be in the primary in the fall next year.
If in fact there was a primary. However, then it would be November, the November 5th or whatever it was. Looking at, let me finish now, looking at those dates based upon the option expiring, I mean, that was obviously, you know, in our minds right there, that how can we do this? That's when, you know, the city attorney became involved.
City can call a special election. I
That's
think
correct.
There's language in that article that states that. In looking at those type of scenarios that you just presented.
That's
In
correct.
addition, there's been a lot of pros and cons. I've heard Pam Dabrowski indicated that she's had certain comments from citizens that said one thing. That's the benefit of the election. It will settle that argument, yay or nay. Even in the language of the charter, it says if there's two referendums on the ballot, the one with the most the votes wins. It respects the argument of the citizens. It respects the fact that I'm going to say one thing, you're going to say something different. Let the best citizens win who get to the ballot and present their case by their vote. Right now, that's what we're trying to present. We're trying to make that argument valid through the election. We're just asking that you not expend any money. Give us our window of opportunity. If we fall on our face, we're going to publicly fall on our face. Because we've been throwing the word 2,500 signatures around. And we're not hoping to come in here with 1,400, 1,500, less than 2,500. Because we have to stop the action of this council. We know that less than 2,500 will put it on the ballot. But it won't stop the council. So we've really given ourselves high goals, and we're just asking for fairness and opportunity to permit us to do that without needless wasting money. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll
Thank you, Mr. Harris, and then Mrs. Powell.
I think we have two sides. We believe we will have the 2,500 signatures, and eventually Mr. Dickerson, he have different indication. The problem is we're putting the tax dollar on the table. Both sides, we owe it to the people to be fair and make a judgment on fairness and what's right for the people in this town. We have to give the process the time to work. If we wait 60 days to take action, if we have the 25 signatures, that it's one issue resolved. If we don't, the issue resolved anyway. The 4-3 vote would proceed. So for us to sit down and fight about it right now, I don't think it's going to resolve the problem. It's going to create more problems. I would like to ask the City Council to consider to table this matter for 60 days from the day they filed the petition. And I think it's very fair to the people in this town. And I think it's a very good idea to bring back unity in our community and let the majority rule the city. If they have 2,500 signatures, fine. If not, it's fine. So therefore, I would ask Mr. Dickerson if he reconsider his motion, and I'll make a motion to table this issue for 60 days from the day they filed the petition.
No, I will not.
Well,
Mrs. Pauser?
I'm not finished, Mr. Mayor. I just was waiting for Mr. Dickerson to respond because in the first meeting we discussed this issue, I did mention on record this issue was political. And I would repeat that. It's a political, but it's going to cost the taxpayer, and I guarantee you the 2,500 signatures, they will be here in 60 days in the City Council. So I will hold you responsible for $176,000 or any council who vote for this one.
Mrs. Pauser?
We went to the election commission last Wednesday. Got the language approved, they took it to the printer that day. I picked these up last Friday. Last Saturday, it rained all day. This is how many we have signed so far. This is in what, 4 days? Okay.
There's another.
And I have more.
More in the truck. We have.
That's They're signing them as soon as you step on their porch. Okay? And Pam, I wanted to tell you that on that tape, if you watch it, I don't know if you have a copy of it.
I have it here.
But you said that you didn't want to see that house torn down. And then the next thing you said was, that's a prime piece of property. Okay? What's stopping anything else from going there? Whether it be a fire station, a McDonald's, a hotel, a room in a house, an apartment building, a store, a laundromat?
Well, it has the possibility of being renovated. That property could be used for other things. I mean, other than to tear that building down and to build. I mean, we have many buildings here that we have torn down. Why not utilize what we have? Why tear down another building?
Has that house ever been inspected?
Might be the dead horse.
Yeah.
The building is no good. I would like to
Ask our fire chief.
Let's get back to work.
If this is passed tonight, to spend that $176,000, can we go to court and get an injunction to stop it?
You can go to court. I'm not sure that you'll be successful in getting an injunction, quite frankly. I don't know on what legal basis any court could grant you an injunction.
Because we have a petition out on the street.
Well, your petition needs to be filed with the clerk, and let me correct this because then I'm neutral. It's 25%, not 2,500 signatures. It's 25% of the number of registered voters in the last city election, whatever that number is. I don't know. You need to ask the city clerk how many registered voters we have. So, just so that's clear, the action that you've proposed in your ballot language or your suggested language is an amendment of an ordinance. An ordinance, if you get the 25%, that ordinance is deemed to be amended, and then the council can either adopt it or send it to an election, and we can talk whether it's 90 days or 150 days, depending on the number of signatures. We'll let that go for now. But I'm not aware of any manner in which you can get a court to give you a restraining order or injunction to stop the council from taking action. Certainly you can.
25 hours, get you. Okay, Mr. Johnson?
I mean, it was the city election commission that passed our language.
But let me make it clear, the ballot language has nothing to do with the action of the council.
No, but I think it's only
You need, until you have 25% of the registered voters in the last city election, you have not taken what our charter calls for in terms of the legal steps. When you have that, then yes, you have achieved that legal step, and that causes a reaction that the council must abide by.
Yeah, but we didn't know that they were going to spend $176,000 either, 6 days later.
Mr. Johnson?
I been in this town almost 40 years. And we've had some tough issues brought before the city council. And I've been to every house in this town at one time or another. There hasn't been a house in this town where I have knocked on a door for something at one time or another. More than once. And that's a fact. But what I see here on the street, talking to people, I had people ask me about this issue. I said, I'm not allowed to be how I feel about it. I express myself. They express themselves. And I had people tell me, so I see it on cable. I would think, I don't want to see this city split. I don't want to see this city council split up like this. I want to see people working in unity, spirit and unity for the benefit of this city and the residents of this town. We're dividing the city. I don't want to see any groups in this town split. I want to see everybody working together in a spirit of unity. And what I see here tonight, there's no unity. And that's sad. A house divided itself will never stand. That's the Bible.
So Republicans said that.
Listen, we're not talking about Let me tell you, a house divided itself never stands. Let me tell you something. That's what the Bible says. And that prays together, stays together. Organization works together, people stay together. What I see now, let me tell you what you need to do. All of you. I know most of you on this conference. Some of them know a long time, some I agree with quite a bit. And most of you I do agree with some of your philosophy, your political philosophy. Some of you I don't. I think the best interest of this city and each council person
politically and otherwise. Sit down, use some common sense, get together and try to compromise. Compromise in the spirit of unity. Do what's best for this city and the rest of this town. Don't worry about 2 or 3 people going to say over here on the east side or west side or south side. I talk to people on the north side of town, ask me about this, the south side of town, ask me about this, and they expressed to me that we need a new fire station. They're all for it. And they look at the difference in the money. We're talking about savings. Now, somebody down in McCackey might not like what I'm going to say. They're expressing to me that we spend enough money downtown already. We need to spend some money out here in our community. That's the expression I'm getting from some people. Let the Chamber of Commerce raise some of their own money. The taxpayers can continue to always support the Chamber of Commerce. Believe me. That's been my opinion. Let the Chamber of Commerce people live outside the city. But see, a lot of our business people don't live in our city. They live outside of our town, and they don't do as much. They don't come to our community. A lot of our local business people live up in Oak Park, Royal Oak, Ann Arbor, different parts of the state. They don't live in our town. We got landlords who own property in this town that don't live in this town. So if they want to fix up downtown areas down there and got business and live some of our larger companies like Ford Motor Company, like where they spend a lot of money for themselves, the small business people don't live here. I mean, all these people don't go contribute that, and they say, why should we worry about it? They want us to patronize them. They want to stay in business. And I try to support the local business people myself. Try to spend money in town. In order to do this, they got to show us enough respect. Help us. Why should we? Let's, folks, all you guys get together. Get unified together. Go someplace, have dinner, have a cup of coffee, say, hey guys, we're going to iron this issue out. We're going to build a new fire station. Everybody's going to be proud. Everybody's going to be happy. I put argue about this, all this task going out in the rain, whatever, third lake petition, when you guys right there can sell the whole situation right there. All you got to do is compromise. And that's take a big person sometimes to compromise. To show how big you are. Thank you do tonight. Donna, you too. You too, Donna. Sit down and listen. Chamber of Commerce, forget about them. They're dead anyway. Most of them. But let me tell you this. Let's do what's better for this system, this town, and get together tonight and say, okay, folks, we got fire. People in the fire department, retirees, saying this building is incompetent. But we respect their opinion. They've been for 30 years or longer. These guys with experience. They know what they got to have. Just like I go out on a job as a pipe fitter. I know what kind of tools I got to have to do the job with. Just recently, I run across some big people that I took for past. As executives, through my cars, they pat me on the back and say, what a great job we did for them. What a great job we do for them. Let's show our fire department we care about them, our citizens we care about them. We can't face everything. Don't miss everything on dollars and cents. This is terrible. This is why we're in such a country, such a mess it is, has been for the last 20 years. Everybody's worried about dollars and cents. That's why we got 10 million people back to work now. Economy's better now, it's been 25 years. Let's get on the ball and take the issue of warrants, compromise, get together, social unity, spirit. Say, okay, guys, we're going to do what's best interest of this city, and you people love you for it. All the community. I haven't heard one person on the north side of Wayne say there's just a new fire station. Not one. I like all of them, believe me.
Even
you. Oh my God. I disagree with your politics, okay? As a person, you're okay, Don, but
I'm glad to know that.
I disagree with your
Will you tell
politics.
Mrs. Smith
No. Let's show what's best interest to me, not the Chamber of Commerce. The community, people live here. That is what we got to look at. And that's a serious matter, folks. You're splitting the city. All of you are. I'm not picking out one or two. All of you are splitting the city wide open. And you get some people that want to pick each other. You feel the air from different sides. Nobody wants to talk, nobody wants to smile, no one wants to be friendly. Hey, we don't get to have that in this city. We got a nice little town there, let's keep it that way. Build your new fire station, or if the fire department thinks it's best, so we don't have to back a fire truck that's 60 feet long across Wayne Road, nor be back in the building. This makes a difference, folks. Do it. Go for it. I dare you to go for it tonight. After the meeting's over, go somewhere and say, hey, folks, we're going to hash this out tonight. Set a deadline and do it. Get behind the citizens of this town and forget about your politics. And forget about people from Oak Park, business people downtown, and do what's best interest of this city, folks. And that's what I'll ask you to do. Show me that you can do it, and you will do it. I dare you to do it. Personally, I dare you to do it. It takes a lot of guts to do it. Folks, you can do it. We got some good people up there on this council. But you know what it takes to make a person to make a mistake. Now, what I would do tonight if I was on that city council, if I thought I was making a mistake in what I do tonight, I'd make a motion for tonight, put it on the table for reconsideration. And vote on this thing again. And vote. That's what happens. Thank you.
Yes, in regard to Mr. Johnson's comments concerning the Chamber of Commerce and the business people, very true. A good many of them don't live here. However, they do something kind of funny, and they do pay taxes. And I suppose maybe taxes without representation because they don't have a choice and they're not able to vote in many cases. But they do pay taxes. And many of them downtown are in, well, all of them in downtown are in that DDA area where this money is coming from, this taxation money is coming from. To say that they're not important is incorrect. And as far as I'm concerned, shouldn't be said. They are important. They are part of this community. And Chamber of Commerce, well, we're not dead yet. We're still kicking. Sometimes are better than others, but we're not dead yet. So don't put us in our grave yet, okay, Cliff? I'd appreciate that.
Neil?
Mr. Mayor, I campaigned for Paul across all but Mr. Powell to put him in office. And I was very proud of most of them up until this point. And now I'm kind of ashamed that I even worked to put them people in there. And Mr. Dickerson, I resent you very much. In the last meeting, you said the fire chief, the retired chief, the fireman, and you hinted we were lying. Don't you ever do that to me again.
Wait a minute, sir. How did I do that? Explain yourself before you make an accusation.
It's on the tape. And you hinted that we were lying.
I hinted? I said? Explain it.
Look at the tape and you'll see.
Well, explain it to me because you
I
just threw
just
something
did.
out. Explain your remark, Mr.
Just
Priestkor.
exactly what you said was the fire chief, the retired chief, and fireman. And you hinted that we were lying about the condition of that building.
I don't recall.
You ever do that to
Well,
me again.
Mr. Mayor, this meeting's getting out of hand. I think you should take
I don't
control.
think it's
I think,
out of order.
well, Mr. Priestkor, you're being totally ridiculous. If you want to explain the situation you're talking about, you can do it. But to say I'm hinting is something that, explain your, maybe I'll take a look at the tape, and obviously I'll call you on it, because I don't, agree with your
But all I can say
accusation.
is that I'm ashamed of some of the people that I campaigned to put on this council.
Thank you.
I'm going to close this with myself. Mr. Brown, I grew up in this city. I know that house that sits on that property all too well. It has always looked like a dump. It has never been, nothing has never been done to it. It will always continue to look like a dump. You are going after a dead horse. Mr. Dickerson, the comments you have made to the public, to these people in this council room, the way you have talked to them, you have talked down to us, you have talked rudely to us. I feel you owe an apology to Mrs. Smith. If I had talked to my mother the way you talked to her, The way you looked at her when she started her comments, my mother would have tanned my backside. And if you would like to ask her, she is sitting right there. You have been totally, on this whole issue, to the citizens of this city, rude and inconsiderate. That you and Mr. Browski need to go out and talk to the citizens. You need to go to some of these Black Watch groups and talk to them and see what their opinion is. I feel that you are only hearing what you want to hear. Mr. Dickerson, you owe the city public an apology for your attitude this evening. Your latest comment you just made is trying to save your butt from a frying pan, sir. The people in this room are not in support of you at this time. Thank you, Council.
Sir, I don't know who you are. I've never met you before. Never met your mother before. If I came across offensive, obviously I apologize. I think the way she was reacted to, the way she began her questions toward me in that type of an action caused me to maybe make that sneer that you comment on. I apologize if I offended you. I'm not up here to offend people. I'm up here to make a decision based upon many hours that we spend on an issue that dates back to April, or actually dates back to January. We've discussed this issue as a council since the January City Council goals meeting. We explained this issue in open meetings numerous occasions. No one came forth on this issue until the I believe it was after the DDA public hearing, which was probably 4 weeks ago. Is that correct, Mr. City Manager?
It was discussed at the
there was
DDA
numerous
meeting in
times
July.
for citizen input. There was numerous
The
studies
first council
done.
meeting in August.
Okay. This is an issue that actually was talked about last year. But as far as this council really moving forward, it started in January at the goals meeting when we discussed public safety, which dealt with police and fire. And, you know, like I stated, you know, I'm not going to carry on, but I apologize if you perceive me that, or anyone else who perceived me like that. I think I was being singled out tonight with some of the comments, and maybe I took it more harsh than I should have. And I apologize to you, Neil. I got upset a little bit with that comment, but, you know, I just feel sensitive when I'm accused of something, but I'm not told what I did. And I watched the tape of the meeting. And, you know, it was a long meeting. And these have been long meetings from January up and through the DDA, up and through the 2 council meetings, up and through my conversations with my colleagues on the phone and in the store with Al and other types of things. You know, it's been a draining and strenuous issue, and I'm very confident in the decision I made based upon what I've said at those 2 meetings about saving taxpayer money to utilize to our deteriorating downtown. I mean, Mr. Johnson talked about, you know, forget about the businesses and forget about this. When I ran for city council 5 years ago, the number 1 issue I faced was recreation, the lack of it, and the lack of businesses and storefronts. And we face that storefront issue as a body more than any other issue, I think, in the city. We get people who come out about every 3 months and want to know, how come we don't have any stores? How come we don't have any businesses? How come we don't have this? The last 2 DDA budgets were exhausted on the library. It's a great project. It's being utilized daily. It's being utilized weekly. I'm very confident in the decision we made there. However, to spend our DDA monies for the next 2 years on another city government project, the entire DDA monies, I have a problem with that because of the fact that the money is collected in the downtown district by mostly over 90% of businesses. And we're going to put this money to use for government purposes. And if you come to me with a plan that says, let's go to the residents and ask them to pass a bond issue to build a fire station, I'll consider it if that's what you want. But we're talking DDA money here. We're talking about utilizing money that we need to take care of our downtowns with. We need new streetlights. Our streets are crumbling. We've got a lot of serious problems downtown. And if anyone in here wants to challenge us and say, hey, let's go to the people with an issue, with a bond issue to build a new fire station, I have no problem with that. I will support that. But to tell me that we should use the Downtown Development Authority money that's designated in the downtown to build, another city building in its entirety, I have a problem with that.
Who pays for the police?
Mr. Netter, please.
Let me ask one question.
Not at this time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I really like to respond to my colleague, Bob. You really against spending the DDA money on building a new fire station. Can you tell me where you're going to get the money to renovate the fire station?
I'm not saying the entire amount, Al. Maybe you misheard me. I'm talking about spending the entire. Wait a minute. Let me finish now, because you challenged on this. The entire DDA budget for the next 2 years on another city building. I have a problem with that.
Yeah, but let me tell you a thing, Mr. Dickerson. The cost of renovating that fire station, it's very close to building a brand new one. In fact, building a brand new one, it's way cheaper than renovating for the long-term investment. You're dealing with tax dollars. You have to look a little bit ahead. You might spend $2 million and a half renovating, and $2.9 million building brand new. The 2.9 and 25 to 30 years way cheaper than the 2.5. So you have to look the long-term investment, and then you renovating fire station without resolving every problem they have.
Yeah, we're getting into stuff that we
No,
already
I'm
discussed.
just telling you, because you mentioned, you always been mentioned downtown. You want to spend money downtown. I tell you, we have $3,000 grant for anybody want to reface their building. Show me how many people show up and take the advantage of that. We can't take the money and spend it on private property. We can't force the people. We have a building uptown boarded for the last 2-3 years. We can't do nothing with the owner. We can't stop the growth and the progress in this city by blackmailing the people, tell them downtown, downtown. Let me tell you something about downtown. You could never compete against the big shopping center growth around in the area and bring retail to the street, where if I'm going to buy shoes for my kids, I walk into shopping center, air conditioned in the summertime, heated in the wintertime, 10 stores to choose from. We're not the only city got hurt by the growth of the shopping center around. So we have to look with wide vision, with long-term investment, what's good for the city and the taxpayer in this town. We talk about this issue many times. Today, I put all those at the side, and I'm coming to you with open arms, tell you, please, let's put this issue once for all to rest and give the people 60 days from the day they file the petition. If they can't collect the 2,500 signatures, this issue is dead. You prevail with your 4-3 vote. If they bring the 2,500 signatures, then you do what the people want. No hardship, no hard feeling, everything go in a positive way. And I can't see why not. If you explain to me, if you have a good reason today to convince me you're doing the right thing, I would change my vote with you. But you didn't
Al, you and I
convince
talked
me
about this
you
after the
doing the
last
right
meeting.
thing for the taxpayer in this town.
Al, you and I talked about this after the last meeting, and I told you I doubted that there would be 2,500 signatures collected. I could be wrong. There's no doubt about it. I could
Exactly.
be wrong.
You could be wrong. I could be wrong. But we have to give the people the chance.
Stop
No, you have to give the people the chance, and 60 days would not change the city's life.
Mr. Phillips? A couple comments I'd like to make. This is a very serious issue. This council has taken many hours of discussion. I resent the fact that some people in the audience would lower themselves to personal attack of 7 people up here that have a very serious issue to deal with the city. I would hope this issue is above personal attacks and personal venting. This council, in fact, spent lots of time looking at the issue of renovation, the issue of renovation and expansion, looked at the issue of building a new fire station. But I am appalled at what I see in terms of people, whatever side of an issue, resort to personal attacks. That is certainly not necessary from the audience. It's certainly not necessary from this council. It's ironic that some people are questioning my colleague Bob Dickerson. This meeting would not be here. We would not be discussing any kind of a fire station without the creativity that Bob Dickerson put forth several years ago about going to the county and establishing a special relationship that we have with the county. When Proposal A was passed by the citizens, when it took the guts out of our DDA funds, Councilman Dickerson is the one that proposed the idea that maybe we can talk to the county administrators about being able to capture more money. And for people to sit here and think he has something untoward in mind, Without Councilman Dickerson's great idea, nobody would be sitting here, and we would still be not talking about anything but a 50-year-old building with no renovation, no expansion, and no construction. So I think it does a great disservice to people in this audience, or people that might be, evidently a lot of people watching on cable, which is great, to think that there's anything other than good ideas coming from this council. The notion that there are two good ideas should be in everybody's head. I firmly, for the best interest of the city, firmly support the renovation and expansion of the current site. I have publicly stated that several times. We can bring in 200 or 300 people on each side of the issue. There are merits, and I'll say this for a fact, there are merits on both sides of the issue. 7 people sit at this dais, and 7 people have to decide issues for the good of the entire city. It's good that we're finally talking about spending $2 million to improve fire service. We have 2 fire chiefs in the room, 1 retired, 1 in the audience. We haven't talked about those issues in either one of their careers, which I find at least we're talking now about improved fire safety. I firmly support the renovation and expansion. However, I also feel that I have no problem that we go 60 days from today and that we table the, I'm probably out of order. I think there's a motion on the table.
I think the motion table is in order anything.
Motion table could be, but you're just discussing now that. That's what the
I have
zoning certainly
that we let the contract on, whatever it would be, November 11th. I have no problem we let the contract that day as opposed to now. Some of your arguments are well taken. Some of the people should realize that this is a serious issue. It is nothing as trivial as some people portray it to be with personal attacks on anybody. That certainly is not necessary for anybody in this room to use that kind of language even with others. These are serious issues we deal with. I'm glad we are dealing with the improved public safety. And I have no problem that we let this contract 60 days from when the petitions were approved, which was September 11th, I guess. Is that the date?
Is there a motion table?
I don't have a problem with tabling it till the 60-day period runs out.
Then move the table. We'll call for a roll call vote. I'm sorry.
I'd like to
You've been
clarify
trying to get my attention.
something, if I could.
Yes.
I think there's a perception that there's a 60-day window that began from the date of the election commission, and including the time that it took to get petitions printed, prepared and printed, and that is not correct. At whatever time you submit a petition, I will only verify signatures that are no more than 60 days old.
The first signature date, it starts the 60 days running.
First signature date.
13th was the first signature.
13th, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Put us back to it. There's no discussion on motion of table. If we call a roll call, please.
May I ask your second to that? I missed that.
There was no second.
Oh, there
It's
wasn't?
not required.
Okay. Mr. Warfield?
Aye.
Mr. Phillips?
Aye.
Ms. McEachran? Aye. Mr. Dickerson?
Aye.
Mr. Haddis?
Aye.
Mr. Grabowski? Aye. Mr. Powell?
Aye.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I'd like to take a moment, I haven't spoken. I appreciate my colleagues' consideration and for the citizens of this community. I think, I certainly, from what I've seen so far, I don't think it would take 60 days, but I appreciate the opportunity for the 60 days. And hopefully we can move forward and be a world-class community with the world-class aquatic center that some of the council supported, all of us supported, the world-class library, and hopefully we'll have a world-class fire station. Thank you. We'll move the agenda.
Recommended sale of city-owned property in Romulus to Diane and Terry Schoenbach for $65,000.
So move for approval. Support.
Move for approval and supported.
Mr. Mayor,
Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Nick.
could someone tell us what that is and where it's at?
Sure. The city manager, you want to?
In Romulus?
The property under discussion is the 72 acres the city of Wayne purchased in 1987. in which to mitigate wetlands so that a Ford plant could be built. The mitigation took place. The wetlands are now 4 years old. We have 1 more year in which we have to report to the DNR or the DEQ how the wetlands are progressing. There is a party, namely Mr. and Mrs. Terry Schoenbach, that have approached the city relative to purchasing that land from us. They have to observe the same deed restrictions that the city has to observe or would have had to observe if we do sell the property, if the council agrees to do that tonight. And that is, it would always have to be a wetland, always. And they're interested in owning it, knowing the conditions that they have to live with. Relative to that, this matter's been discussed with the city council. The city attorney's been involved, community development director's been involved, and other members of the staff. And we are recommending to the council tonight that the property be sold, and for $65,000 to Mr. and Mrs. Schoenbach. And
Is this a land contract, or will a warranty deed be provided?
The purchase agreement has many, many conditions to it because of the wetland issue. It's quite elaborate. There is an escape clause for 30 days extended to the Schoenbachs, who presently own some land near the airport, and they're getting some money from the county in a condemnation procedure. They will pay the city cash at some point in time, 30 to 90 days from the date of the execution of the purchase agreement. It's a cash sale.
And my last question, does this money go into general fund, or does it go into DDA or something?
this is not DDA, it'd be general.
I don't know.
You know, I can't remember now. I believe we,
I don't know.
I'm not certain of the answer to that.
I don't know.
I have to go back and
You'll
see.
have to check.
I have to go back and research that.
Possibility, sounds like it may have to go to the DDA.
Well, in light of the discussion we just had, I just was curious. If it could be mentioned at the next meeting, you know, where it's going.
It's
General fund?
no, it's no secret the property we purchased was, the money that was used by the city was the money that we were paid by Ford for the land that we sold them. We owned 80 acres in Wayne that they wanted to buy, to build a plant on. They gave the city some money for that land. It had wetlands on it. We then took some of that money and purchased land in Romulus to mitigate the wetlands on, and built wetlands on that property to get a permit so they could build the plant on the former city property. And I would have to do a little research as to where those funds, can they go to the general fund or the DDA? I believe they go to the general fund, but I'm not sure. It may be that they go to the capital projects fund.
We'll make a report.
We'll have to review it and report back at the next meeting.
Mrs. Pouser?
I was just wondering, is the EDA meeting held in this room?
Yes.
Can they be televised?
They could be. We've never had there's some cost involved, and we never had any real demand for the DDA. If you think these are fun, DDAs are a lot of fun.
Probably not a lot of citizens come, right?
No, very few.
Because they don't know what's going on.
Very few.
Typically, the DDA meets like any board does. It has an agenda. The meetings are posted. The meetings are on cable, indicating the Downtown Development Authority will meet 7 o'clock on a Sunday, and they're typically always here. From time to time, they hold public hearings. Every year, they have at least one public hearing to review that plan for that year. Everyone who owns property in the DDA is sent a letter. In addition to that, the law requires that advertisements be put in 20 places, 20 conspicuous places. And so they're in places like the post office and in all the banks, indicating that the DDA will have a public hearing. Typically they're held here, but sometimes the crowd is fairly large, and we've held them in the lounge of the community center. Now we have the option of holding them in the meeting room in the library. But sometimes you get as many people at a DDA meeting as you have tonight, sometimes very few, sometimes they're standing out in the hallway. But as the mayor indicated, any meeting of the city, if the city council so orders, can be shown on cable. It's not been typical to show meetings of boards and commissions. The only meetings that we tape and play back several times until the next council meeting is held, the city council meetings.
And maybe if there's something on the agenda, department, you know, at the fire station, maybe we should consider maybe televising it and getting the people interested before any final decision is made, and more people can have their input.
One more item on the DDA. There's a citizens advisory group for DDH also. They come from the district, so that work in conjunction with the DDA. So there's some citizens involved other than the DDA also. Thank you.
I have a motion and
All in
support.
favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Emergency repairs to the sanitary sewer under the Salvation Army building in the amount of $4,916.38 to be paid from the DPW Water and Sewer Fund.
Move approval, supported. Any discussion? Hearing none. I'll show extension, Madam Clerk. But, I'll call the vote, and I'll abstain. I'm one of the persons involved in the sewer work. 4 businesses there. My building is down at Wayne Road, Michigan. So I just shouldn't vote on this matter. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. You have the consent calendar before you.
So move without any exception?
Move without exception. Support. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Last item on your agenda is a request to recess to a closed session to discuss a legal opinion.
So moved.
Support.
Mr. Mayor, could the council provide me, during public comment, I forgot to mention something very important. I had intended to mention, just as a note to you, Reverend Jesse Jackson will be in Easter on behalf of the district to do a mass voter registration drive. That'll be on the morning of the 23rd, 9 a.m. at Easter High School. In light of the president coming in today, this has been a popular month, so I just wanted to make mention of that, and we invite any of you to come and participate with us. It's going to be a vote, just of kids, registering and voting kids on that morning, the 23rd. So, like other dignitaries, we would like to invite you. Thank you very much.
What time?
9 a.m., sir.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Easter High School.
I'm glad you mentioned that. It reminded me, Madam Clerk, the last day of registration for new voters is
October 7th.
October 7th. So anyone that needs to still register, you have till October 7th and
8 p.m.
8 p.m. And then there's also absentee ballots procedure. If you're interested in the absentee ballots, so you want to vote before the election, if you're going to be out of town or whatever the stipulations are, you can also see the clerk or call the clerk's office. We're getting close to election. We'll make sure to have City of Wayne have a big participation in this election this year.
Does the clerk have the cards now that citizens can pick up for voter registration, or do we have to get them downtown?
No, we have voter registration applications.
Okay. Okay. We can get some from you? Thank you.
Do we have a roll call vote?
Yes, please.
Yes, dear.
Mayor Warfield,
Aye.
Stellar,
This is legal. Aye.
McEachran, Dickerson,
Aye.
Haddis,
Aye.
Dobrovolsky, Collins.
Okay, stand adjourned for closed session. Recess.
I'd like to talk to you, Mayor Warfield, and you, Mr. Zeck, and I've talked to you. Mr. Augury, we were given a 3-hour notice to move our vehicles, and we were told by the people that came down, and that had been the third time we had been informed with less than a 3-hour notice to move our vehicles. This time, we will not have access to our driveways for over 3 weeks with a 3-hour notice. That really set us off. I mean, it woke me up on my vacation, so it didn't help matters. After we had talked to Mr. Zach, Mr. Warfield, and Mr. Augury, I understand that there was a meeting with the engineering firm to discuss communications. Came back through, and we've heard nothing. I mean, until Friday, after I talked to Mr. Augury, when we found out that it was going to be paving, and for sure we wouldn't be able to get in front of our houses. We did receive the construction notice, again, from the city of Wayne. All along, we were told from Mr. Augury, Mr. Zach, and the engineering firm, and I don't know the guy's name, that in the contract, we are supposed to have access to our driveway except when paving comes along. The verbal notes I have been told was 4 to 7 days. All we're looking for is, yes, we're going to be inconvenienced. They have to do the other side of the street. What's going on? If we had communication like this, yeah, I know I'm going to be out of my house for 7 to 10, or out of my driveway, but it's been 2.5 weeks now that I haven't had access to my driveway. I haven't been in my garage in over 3.5 weeks. I mean, I bought the house for a garage, and my cars are filthy. My house is filthy. I just bought brand new furniture, unfortunately off-white, and it was installed a month before this all happened. So I have all the cleaning bills that I have to take care of once it gets done. Again, I do have communication. We have been given a suggested route, or a suggested parking spot. I live on 4th Street, 4 houses off of Forest. The suggested parking is over in J.C. Park, which is a block and a half, 2 blocks away from where I live. With a 1-year-old, it's not very convenient. We've gotten to know our neighbors very well since one of them, who's been in the city for over 50 years now, has allowed us to park one of our vehicles on their boulevard. The other one, that's out of the question. So what I'm asking the city, Mr. Zeff, Mr. Augury, to support, as you're going through the city with this, let us know what's going on. Please pass out notes or get on the engineers that are supposed to be telling us. He'll give us a 3-hour notice. When is my approach going to be completed? I'm assuming hopefully within the 10 days, and that's been a week from Monday, so we've gotten, it's just this past Friday, so we have had 5 days now. I'm expecting the approach to be done by Monday. Wednesday at the very latest, so a week from tonight. I'm expecting at the very latest I'll be able to pull into my driveway. I don't know when the approaches are going to be done. They're doing the entire neighborhood, not one street at a time where they're minimizing the inconvenience. They're doing the entire neighborhood there. We're running into rush. I mean, it's ridiculous. We're getting woke up at 6:30 in the morning with cement trucks driving down 4th Street. That's where it seems like they're at the end of 4th Street near the railroad tracks is where they're initiating all the traffic. But they're going right past our house at 6:30 in the morning. Mr. Augury and the person who answers the phone at the building, I don't know her name, she has said earliest and by city ordinance it's 7 o'clock. So you're waking us up at 6:30, that's not 7 o'clock. They don't start construction, but they got the bulldozers and the cement trucks running at 6:30 every morning. This has been going on for almost a month. We're asking, please help us, because we have the other side of the streets to go. If there's ruts in the middle of the road, there's 3 of them between Forest and Clinton on 4th Street that I have to go over every day in order to get out to go to work. Have them fill that in when they dig that up with the truck.
Hey, man. Vince, go ahead and I'll finish.
Like Mr. Gibson says, I mean, there was some miscommunication between the consultant, the contractor, and the resident. We are trying, when we started that project out, we started it in a way that we had a schedule from the contractor to do it, like he said, like one street at a time. The contractor that is doing the underground is not the contractor that is doing the concrete. The contractor that is doing the concrete is subbed by the Jeff, and we've done so many projects with them in the past. This project was supposed, according to the contract, was supposed to be completed by November 15th of this year. We had met with the consultant and with the contractor, and at the time it was decided to minimize the inconvenience, to just go ahead and full force and try to put about 17,000 feet of sewer in the shortest time possible, and try to finalize the project by the end of October, by the end of August, 2.5 months ahead of schedule. This is trying to minimize inconvenience to the residents. I agree with Tom. A lot of times the contractor took it on his own and he started knocking at the door. And then the contractor has been told about that, and some of his employees were reprimanded and were just kicked out of this job to other jobs because, we have 3 crews out there. We have bulldozers. It's just the biggest infrastructure improvement project the city ever served in the history. And I'm not saying that with our communication with the residents wasn't that great, especially that the contractor, we got 3 crews, and each of them were not working together, and they go and start knocking at the door. And then I got called, just like Sam said, that's what's happening here. And we've been meeting for the past 2 weeks, and we've been trying to improve the communication and telling at least the residents what's going on for the next week or for the next 2 weeks or so. Right now, all sewers are on the ground. The next phase is the good phase, which is concrete in the street.
Hold up a minute. You said all the sewers are in the ground?
All sewers are on the ground.
Except for
In our neighborhood,
In your neighborhood, the only street that still don't have sewer yet is Annapolis between 4th and Columbus, and Michigan Avenue between Chief Charlie and Howard. And by that time, we're doing like $2.5 million projects. We're trying to do it in about 2.5 months. In your case, Dan, we have already paved half the street, as you know, like 4th Street. And the next step is we're paving all the half, because we're doing it half at a time.
Will the approach be?
The approach, the next step is when the concrete hardens the steps, we're putting all the forms, we're backfilling behind the curb, and we're putting temporary driver posts like in fill right now, so you could go up and down your drive. When we do the other half of the road, we're gonna put all the approaches at one time. Okay. So this should be within the next 4 weeks, 4 to 5 weeks.
As my approach, I won't be able to get in my driveway.
You'll be able to get in your driveway. You'll be able to get in your driveway by next week. But it's not gonna be on concrete.
That's fine. As
But you'll be
long
able-
as we know what's
Right.
going on and it's in writing, half the street's getting it, half's not. Only the ones that are affected are getting it, but the other half is blind. It's opening communication between the residents if you want to look at a positive.
Right. We understand
However, both sides really need to know what's going on instead of being blindsided. They're all residents of Wayne. We need to know when things are going to happen. Minimize the inconvenience is great, but like I said, I'm sitting here, and if I hadn't come to this meeting and asked a question, I would have either had to call Mr. Algareve or somebody, show up one day and they'd be filling it in, but I have no idea when.
like the letter says, in a week you'll be able to get to the drive, because we do it from the other half of the street. So we got like between 7 to 10 weeks. So you'll be able to go to the drive.
That's my complaint.
Mr. Phillips, when Tommy Gibson has a complaint, it should be well heard, because he's one of the more reasonable people I've ever met in my life. Maybe some of you don't know, I was all-state athlete in 2 sports at John Glenn High School a couple years ago, or maybe more than a couple of years ago, judging from the growth. But Ramsey, serious question Tom brought up. If we're going down one side of a street and doing something, turn off water, putting concrete in, taking concrete up, are we just telling those people on that side, or are we leafleting both sides of the street so the left side knows what the right side's doing and so on?
In the case of water shut off, water is not part of this project, but in case of the contractor, we have a couple, like few water main breaks. And with water main breaks, you gotta shut it off, so you only have like time
I
to write
understand
the
that.
people a letter, they go knock
But
at the
for
door.
planned kind of things where you're putting in concrete, taking up, and that kind of stuff, it would make sense to me that if both sides of the street aren't knowing what's going on, you're gonna naturally create a problem as opposed
The
to...
letters we're sending to the people that we are putting concrete in front of their drive, because the other side is accessible, so they can go up and down their drive.
I understand that, but they might wanna know that, hey, half my street's taken up. I mean, just so you could maybe minimize some.
They all receive the notice.
Oh, they
The
do.
answer to the question is they all got the notice.
We did all receive the first one. Okay. The second note, only half of our street was given them. The point of the water shut-off, there was a water main break, but that was prior to this, and we were given about 15 minutes notice. The 10-minute notice that I was referring to is when they started digging up the sewers to separate them, to pull them out of the ground. My wife was given a 10-minute notice for that to say it'll be shut off, and it was shut off all day. They finally restored the water about 3:30 that afternoon, and that was with the sewer project. It was not with the water main break.
Right, right.
So,
And that was that was an error. That was an error on the part of the contractor. Specifications indicate that they need to give more notice than that.
right. And that's my plea.
Right.
Is please give us more notice
Right.
than that. And
it's
if
the week.
If it's supposed to be from the contractor, why has this contractor got this job? The communication's so poor that we have to call the city engineer, the city manager, and the mayor before there's action.
More or less, that's the consultant, the construction engineer, which is Ayers Lewis, that's providing the project. He's the one who's supposed to give the notices to the property owners. And these are, some discussions that were held with them. Because, I mean, I agree with Tom on most of the issues, that these residents weren't given the proper notice.
Right. There were some mistakes made. The weak link in the chain broke. The weak link has been changed. We recognize that you had no idea how extensive this project was going to be. It's a difficult thing to try and explain to somebody the scope of it, that we're going to be tearing out the whole street, one half at a time, that your driveway is going to be taken out. The water main breaks were an accident. They weren't planned.
I didn't know there was a water main break on that.
We had several of them.
As far as the scope of it, when I dated my wife 5 years ago in Dearborn Heights, they had the exact same project going on. In there, they had advance notice of basically what was going on, and then that morning or the night before, the contractors, the construction people were going around saying, remember, we're shutting off the water tomorrow. Remember, you're going to have to move your vehicles out of here. Advance notice, that's the whole thing.
We agree, that was the plan. That was the plan, and the contractor and our consultant fell down. They've been corrected, and the communication, as you indicated, has changed. We apologize for the fact that it occurred. It's our job to oversee that, and so you don't know to call Ayers Lewis or 6S or Lonzo. You know to call City Hall or the building department, and that's what you did. And I hope you feel that we didn't put your calls to the side and go do something else. Each time you phoned, we have immediately been in contact with the project manager for Lonzo Construction Company or our counterpart at Ayers Lewis, and they've taken corrective action. To be frank with you, Mr. Gibson, and I hope you're the only one that comes to this council chamber, you have, to my knowledge, the only person that's appeared before the council to complain about this project. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be here. I am saying you should. But for as extensive of work as we're doing, and trying to do it and keep the street half open so that the fire department and the police department and you can operate in some semblance of order. It's extremely difficult. I wish we could have some temporary parking lots that would be closer than a block and a half from your home, but
please, I don't want to interrupt, but the whole point is communication.
I understand
that. It is a big project. We are able to get down the street. The only thing is, if I'm going to have to walk 2.5 blocks to get to my car every morning, which I physically can do, please let me know in advance. Don't tell me that morning. Don't have me come home at the end of a day where I'm sure everyone has stress in their job. You come home after a bad day of work and come and have to find out that you're parking 2.5 blocks away. At least if you're prepared for it the night before, you're at least going to work knowing you're going to have to come back to this. Advance notice is all we're looking for.
We agree.
And that is the biggest complaint, even talking with my neighbors, that's the biggest complaint is we don't know what's going on until the morning of.
And that's the change we've made, is to correct that.
Appreciate your recommendations, and hopefully they'll be corrected. And it's going to be a big project. We really appreciate the help and the consideration that all the neighbors down there realize how massive the project is. But we have really had good cooperation for the community in that area, and of course yourself. But these are the problems we hopefully will try to correct.
Thank you for
Thanks for coming. Yes.
I only have one more thing before I take my daughter home. Okay. I wanted to tell Donna and the Wayne Rec Center, thank you very much for the swimming party that my daughter can be and I guess I'm showing Lynn. We look forward to doing it, and we're going to get together with Cameron and with Rick and make the arrangements for that.
Very good.
On behalf of the Merchants Committee and the Chamber, thank you very much.
Congratulations from the citizens of Wayne on behalf of the City Council. You got something else?
Yes, I was wondering, one of the firefighters brought up a situation where they have to share a phone. Now, I have a hard time believing that, but if that is true, then this council is to blame for them having to share a phone, because we've put lots of equipment in the vehicles, and I don't understand why, the equipment's here for the secretaries and stuff has been updated for them. Why in one office they would have to share one phone is just absolutely, I can't believe that it's happening.
Okay.
Yeah, so try to get a phone for them, an extra one, until the renovation.
Next item on your agenda is communications and reports. Letter from HUD regarding the fiscal year 1995 assessment of the city's public housing program.
Another excellent report. Terry Farmer, our executive director, and people that assist her and the commission they've had a high rating again. In fact, it's the highest one they've received.
95 out of 100.
Fantastic. Congratulate them and the council. Received note to file.
Letter from Senator Bennett concerning various matters.
Received note to file.
Memo from the Community Development Director regarding the MDOT Transportation Enhancement Program.
This Debbie Mann's talked to us earlier about. Fantastic. Pretty good with only 75 chosen out of the 234. City of Wayne is one of them. So, good job. Received note to file.
Thank you letter concerning Henry Gowdy, Historical Museum Director, Ronald Ford, DPW Foreman, and Mary Barber, Deputy City Clerk.
Did you read the letter there concerning Chief Gowdy?
Dear Sir, it is for sure the nicest people in the world live and work in Wayne, Michigan. Last week, due to an inquiry about my great-great-grandmother, Maria Benoit, who is buried in the cemetery there, Mr. Henry Gowdy of the Historical Museum asked Ronald Ford of your Department of Public Works to go to the cemetery and obtain death dates for me. Later, he went back and took photos of the tombstones of the Benoits and the Carpenters for me and mailed them in just a matter of days. What a thrill it is for me, living so far away, to see the beautiful cemetery where my people lie. That was an act of kindness above and beyond the call of duty. And since he is on vacation this week and I could not reach him in person, I wanted to tell you how very much I appreciate everyone I have dealt with in your fair city. Your Assistant City Clerk, Mary Barber, was the first person I talked to some weeks ago, and she was the one who helped me find my cousin, Marion Carpenter, who told me of Mr. Gowdy and your wonderful museum. Each one has been more than kind, and I'm so grateful and very proud that my people came to Wayne County in the 1830s. I compliment you on a staff of caring people. I will never forget them. Sincerely, Linda Calder.
From Lynn Creek, Missouri. Fine job, Hank.
continuing your wonderful service to this community. Thank you. Gary, thanks the board also. And Mary. Yes.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I just add a quick aside? I know many times I get letters at the chamber that require information from the historical museum, and Hank is always great. He always does a good job. Thanks.
Thank you.
I might add, he's a beautiful neighbor too. He helped me cut the grass.
Al said you're a wonderful neighbor too. You help him cut the grass.
He watched him grow.
Letter from Representative Ernest Istook Jr. of Oklahoma regarding a provision to the Interior Appropriations Bill.
Staff has reviewed this, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Although it was just received recently, we reviewed the matter, and given that it is supported by the National League of Cities, particularly, we recommend to you that you approve this resolution and send it to Congress. So moved. Support. Motion's ordered, been made, supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
We'll make sure that
Did our
Rivers and
Yes.
Cleveland and Abraham get it.
Item 6, general items for consideration. Professional services agreement with Deborah Mills to direct the Tri-City Recreation Program for an amount not to exceed $8,450 to be paid from the Parks and Recreation Contractual Services budget.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Emergency replacement of 3 compartment doors on Fire Truck 201 to West Shore Fire Repair in the amount of $2,730 to be paid from the Fire Department's transportation budget.
So moved.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Approval for 6th annual Red October Run on October 5th and a hold harmless agreement with Oakwood Hospital, Annapolis Center.
Moved approval, supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. That'll be on October 5th. I'm sure you'll hear more about that. We've done that for a number of years now. Thank you.
Designation of a delegate and an alternate to the Michigan Municipal League annual meeting on September 26th.
Move the mayor be selected as a delegate to the Michigan Municipal League meeting.
Support. Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
So moved, Mayor Pro Tem as an alternate.
Moved and supported. Mayor Pro Tem alternate. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Professional services agreement for fall performances at Stage 4 to be paid from the DDA budget. The Detroit Ballet Company, $3,000.
So move approval.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Laser Vaudeville, $1,500.
So moved.
Moved, supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Carried.
The Western Jazz Quartet.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution allocating Central Wayne County Sanitation Authority Incinerator Revenue Bond Series 6.
This is the bond issue that's involved with completing the work at the monofill, putting the liner beneath the ash that's been brought there by the incinerator.
Move approval.
Support.
Moved approval, supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Carried.
Lead list number 5.
So moved for approval.
Moved for approval, supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Carried.
Compensation agreement with the general employees for the period July 1, 1996 to June 30, 1997.
Move approval.
Support. Approval, supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Adjust personnel? Thank you.
Transfer of funds from within the fiscal year 95-96 Downtown Development Authority budget.
These were discussed with the Citizens Council and the DDA and recommended for approval by those bodies.
So moved.
Moved. Supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Contract with Detroit Edison for the relocation of overhead equipment relating to the development of the Central Business District parking lot number 2 in the amount of $33,234 to be paid from the DDA budget.
Move approval. Supported. Any discussion? Jen, can you show me what they're proposing there?
Well, Mayor, in short, Debbie Mans is the expert on this, along with Ramsey, is this parking lot number 2, which is the DDA project. All of these walls, fences, and drives will be removed. A single parking lot will be constructed, and the utilities, which are overhead, will be put below ground. Storm sewers will be constructed here where there are no storm sewers. All the parking lots now are tilted so that they drain into Sims. They will have in-the-ground drainage, and sanitary sewer and other improvements will be made below ground.
How's the time frame on this? Coming along about what we projected? Or have a completion date or estimate, completion date? Or is Ramsey going to get it?
I believe the completion date is early October, that, and they're proceeding on schedule, so.
Right.
Correct, Ramsey.
We have a construction manager on the job. It's Balcom Guido and Associates, and it's a dusty project like the one on the CSO project, but we're moving along quite well there. Across the street, the old library is being converted to the senior center, so we've been tying up Sims Avenue some, but the contractors are getting along pretty good. And the business establishments are open throughout the construction. We've had to work hard to make sure that that occurred because we're trying to do this and not interrupt their business any more than we have to, and try and get it done as quickly as possible. Like the project down on the south end of town, we're trying to, instead of going all the way till the middle of November, which the contract calls for, we're trying to get out of there by October 1, and that's why we're going so fast. And maybe in some ways we've got ahead of ourselves a little bit on the communication by trying to get in and get out, and we'll repair that.
I think we should pass on to the business people and the citizens that had to pull into the lots in the temporary situation. Again, we thank everybody for their cooperation on this project. Receive note to file.
You have a motion and support.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Acceptance resolution regarding the Michigan Department of Natural Resources Recreation Bond Grant for Taft Playground.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you were made aware of this last year, that the DNR had recommended this funding. The state legislature has now appropriated the funds, and you need to pass this as an acceptance of this appropriation, and so that we can get started with getting this improvement made. And I believe you're going to try to do this, Kim, before the end of fall.
I'm working together with Debbie regarding our deadline.
Right. We don't want to do it now while the fun squad and things are going on in Taft Park, but as soon as the children go back to school, we'd like to get the pavilion put in and the other improvements so that they're ready for next year.
So move to accept the resolution.
Been moved. Supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Amendment to the contract with the NEMAX Midwest of Livonia for the purchase of 3 personal computers at the same unit price approved by council at its July 16th meeting to be paid from the MIS budget.
Move approval.
Support. Move approval. Supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Contract with Ameritech regarding the relocation of the overhead equipment relating to the development of the Central Business District parking lot number 2 in the amount of $27,225 to be paid from the DDA budget.
Move approval.
Move approval. Supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
There are 7 sets of minutes before you in the consent calendar.
Move without any exception.
Moved without exception, supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, carried.
Item 8, request to adjourn to a closed session to discuss the purchase of real estate and specific pending litigation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we do that, I'm sure that in all of your packets you received a resignation letter from Deborah Browning, who was head of the Citizens Against Crime Committee. And I would like this council, if it would so deem correct to do so, to direct staff to thank her, to write a letter to her, thanking her for all of the work involved in the creation of and the continuance of the viability of the Citizens Against Crime Committee. She brought a great deal of enthusiasm and knowledge to the committee. She'll be sorely missed. I hope that she will return to the committee when conditions are permitted for her to do so.
I might add to this, if it's possible, to make a motion to have resolution made for Debbie Browning. I worked with her for many years, and she put endless hours for the Citizen Against Crime, and I really appreciate people like her, and I like to make a motion to have resolution made for her in appreciation of all the time she worked and effort.
And then to that, would you add also a letter to thank you?
And letter, an appropriate letter.
We have no difficulty. You and Nelson with George. Exactly. Appropriate resolution. Very good.
I'll support it, motion there.
Moved and supported. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Okay, we'll move to a closed session or roll call.
Probably appropriate if somebody made a motion to do so.
Been moved. Supported. Roll call.
Warfield.
Aye.
Phillips. McEachern. Dickerson.
Aye.
Havis.
Aye.
Silverbalski. Powell.
Move to a closed session. Adjourn to a closed session. Did Mr. Levesque ever appear before the council?